stepped out of the bathroom, drying my hair with a small towel. Ethan was still by the window, his gaze fixed outside just as I had left him before my shower. "That won't help," I said, walking over to join him. My eyes followed his line of sight, landing on Florence, the woman he believed to be our aunt. If she really was our aunt, she would have recognized me the day I arrived, but she didn't. Not even you, Ethan. She didn't seem to know you either. "She's pretending," Ethan said firmly, his tone laced with conviction. "I know her. That's exactly how she is." I sighed, shaking my head as I moved away to get dressed. People can look alike. Just look at Ari. How much she resembles that girl. Ethan ignored me, his posture rigid as he remained glued to the window. Once I was dressed, I returned and pulled him away, practically dragging him toward the stairs. "What are you doing, Matthew?" he protested, his voice edged with confusion. "Talking to Florence," I replied, my grip firm as I led him down the steps. "You have all these questions? Let's ask her directly." As we stepped towards the flower garden, the air was thick with the scent of roses and damp soil. Florence and Skylar stood amidst the blooms, their heads bent as they worked. Florence was snipping away at the dead flowers with a pair of silver scissors, while Skylar's presence, eerily reminiscent of our sister, stirred an unease in me I couldn't quite shake. Ethan slowed his pace, his earlier conviction faltering as he hesitated. "Maybe we shouldn't," he started, but I cut him off. "No, Ethan. You've been brooding long enough." I moved forward, determined, and called out, "Can I have your attention?" Both women stopped what they were doing and turned to face me. Florence raised a brow, her expression cool, while Skylar's resemblance to our sister sent a chill down my spine. I tried my best not to stare at Skylar, though the resemblance to Ariana gnawed at me. It was unnerving. It made me question everything, especially Grayson's actions, how he had begged our sister to return, only to allow his ex-wife to stay. The frustration boiled within me, but I forced myself to focus. I stole a quick glance at Skylar, feeling her sharp eyes on me before turning my attention back to Florence. "My brother believes you're our aunt," I began, my voice steady but firm. "Is it true? Because I don't know. And I can't say he's wrong since he's older than me and because I've never seen you before. So, is he right or not?" Florence straightened, the scissors slipping from her hands and landing with a muted thud on the soft earth. Her sharp eyes bore into me, and her tone when she spoke was cold and deliberate. "Is this how you talk to your elders? Is this what your mother taught you?" Her words were a slap in the face, but I didn't flinch. I held her gaze, refusing to back down. Ethan shifted nervously behind me, but I kept my focus on Florence, waiting for her answer. Florence straightened, brushing invisible dirt off her hands. Her voice was calm but carried a hint of finality. "Tell your brother I'm sorry for disappointing him," she said, her voice calm but distant. "But I am not the person he thinks I am." Before I could respond, Ethan's voice came from behind me, sharp and full of accusations. "You cannot fool me, Aunt Ruth." Florence cut him off with a sharp tone, her irritation clear as she turned her full attention to him. "I don't know what you're talking about, young man," she snapped. "But as I've told your brother, I am not that person. I am not your aunt or anyone else you think I might be. So if you'd kindly leave, you're distracting us from our work." Ethan's jaw tightened, and I could see the frustration brewing in him, but I grabbed his hand firmly before he could press further. I turned to Florence, my tone steady but edged with a warning. "You better be telling the truth," I said firmly, "because I will tell my sister to ask Grayson about you. And in that I mean your background, and that's when we'll know whether you're right or wrong." Florence's face darkened, her irritation boiling over. She motioned toward us with a wave of her hand, her voice sharp as a blade. "Please, leave my garden. Now." I tugged Ethan's arm, pulling him away from the garden, and headed back inside. As we entered the house, I released Ethan's hand and turned to face him, my tone flat. "You see what I told you? She doesn't know us." Ethan spun around, his frustration spilling over as he practically growled, "I'm 100% sure she is." "But why did you have to include that man?" I blinked, feigning innocence. "Which man?" "You know exactly who I'm talking about, Grayson," Ethan said sharply, his voice rising. "He's not part of our family. Why would you bring him into this?" I sighed, running a hand through my hair as I met his glare head-on. "Whether we like it or not, he's dating our sister, and he's the same man Ari loves. So we have to get ourselves to like him, Ethan, whether we like it or not." I leaned in closer, softening my tone but keeping my stance firm. "And honestly, I don't have a problem with liking him, as long as Ari is happy. Ariana's happiness is my first priority. Always." Ethan's scowl didn't waver, but I caught the slight flicker of understanding in his eyes. I looked around, ensuring we were alone, then leaned in even closer. "And about that," I said quietly, "I was joking when I said I'd ask Grayson." But Florence's reaction left me with questions, serious questions, and suspicion about her. Ethan's expression shifted, his brows furrowing in thought. "You saw that too, right?" he asked, his voice lower now. "Of course I did," I replied, nodding firmly. Ethan leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a whisper, his curiosity clearly piqued. "Hatred aside, do you think Grayson can help us?" I shrugged, trying to hide my unease. "I'm not sure, but we have to try." Ethan shook his head, exhaling sharply. "But why aren't they here yet? It's already been 2 days. I hope he didn't do anything to—" I clamped my hand over his mouth before he could finish, my voice cutting him off sternly. "Swallow your words back, Ethan. She'll be back here safely. Don't even let those thoughts out into the air." Ethan swatted my hand away, giving me a hard, irritated look. His jaw tightened, and he muttered, "Fine." Without another word, he turned on his heel and started up the stairs. "I'm going to talk to Gabriel." I blew out a heavy breath at my brother's hot temper. I turned and made my way to the kitchen. Grabbing a cold glass of water, I drank it down in one go, the icy chill momentarily clearing my thoughts. As I placed the empty glass on the kitchen island, Ethan's earlier concern about the possibility of Grayson harming Ariana lingered in my mind. The thought planted a dark seed of doubt that I quickly tried to uproot. Stop it, Matthew," I told myself, giving my cheek a light slap for thinking of negativity. As I stepped out of the kitchen, my thoughts still in a tug of war, I saw something that made me stop dead in my tracks. Florence, gripping Skylar's hand, was rushing her down the hallway. There was an urgency in their movements that set my instincts on edge. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but the hushed tones and furtive glances were enough to stoke my curiosity. I followed them quietly, my steps light on the floor. When they disappeared into a room, I pressed myself against the wall and waited until the door clicked shut before moving closer. Placing my ear against the door, I strained to listen. At first, the muffled voices were indiscernible, but as my focus sharpened, their words began to take form. "Remember what I said, child." Florence's voice was low but firm. "You need to make sure Mr. Anderson doesn't act on what her brother told him. They're testing him." "Testing him?" My brows furrowed in confusion. What kind of test were they talking about? "But do you think he'll believe me?" Skylar's voice was trembling with doubt. "Mum, you know Grayson is a very smart man. He'll fucking kill us both if he finds out I'm not that girl." My heart lurched and my breath caught in my throat. "Not that girl?" The words slammed into me like a tidal wave. My sister, Ariana. That meant... I pushed the door open with a loud bang, not caring about subtlety anymore. The force of the door startled them, their heads whipping around to face me. Florence's face twisted in a mix of shock and anger. "How long have you been there?" she snapped, her voice high-pitched and full of panic. "Did you hear?" "Yes, I heard everything," I cut her off, stepping into the room. My voice was sharp, my anger barely contained. "I knew something wasn't right with the two of you. Mother and daughter, huh? That's what I just heard. She called you Mum." I took a deliberate step closer, locking my gaze on Florence. "Does Grayson know about this?" "I doubt it. If he did, there's no way he'd have made you his maid." "And from what I gathered," I said, my voice low and edged with disbelief, "you're planning to swap her with my sister. That's what you're trying to do, isn't it? Is this because of what I said in the garden, about asking Grayson about you?" I let out a sharp, humourless laugh, shaking my head. "You two are unbelievable." Taking a steadying breath, I continued, my tone firm and unwavering. "Don't even think about it because it's not going to happen. I won't let it." I met their startled gazes, my resolve solidifying with every word. "Grayson has to know about this. He has to know everything I've uncovered." I turned on my heel, my anger fueling every step as I strode toward the door. But before I could make it out, a sharp blow struck the back of my head. The impact was sudden and brutal, making the world around me spin violently, the room tilting and blurring as my knees buckled beneath me. A wave of dizziness overwhelmed me, and I barely registered the muffled gasps behind me before everything went dark.